Bruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Samich Dalid Amud Aleph, 10 lines from the top. The Gemara brings back a previous statement, Gufa. Omar Rav Yehuda Omar Shmuel Afilu Schiroi Vafilu Kitoi Lesin Eruvin V'dayoy. The statement is saying that when there is a lekitoi or a schiro is an employee all year round. Lekito is partial time of the year, for example, the time where he is harvesting on behalf of his employer. Here we're talking about where the employer is a nachri. So the schiro or the lekitoi, even though we have a din that when a Jew lives together with the nachri in the same chotzer, he has to rent part of that reshus from the nachri. But we see over here that there's a kula, that if there's an employee of the Nochri, it's enough for the employee to make an Eruv, and that's sufficient. Says the Gemara, Omer Rav Nachman Kama Ma'al Yohoshmaitza. Rav Nachman makes a comment on this halacha. How good, how milo is this halacha? Omer Rav Yehuda Mar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, a different halacha, unrelated. Shasa revis yayin al yoire. A person who drinks a revis of yayin should not render a halachic decision. Rav Nachman loy ma'aliyah hashmaitza. This is not a good halacha. Deho ana kol kama de lo shasina reviyasa dechamro lotzila da'itoi. Because he said, so long as I don't drink a revis of yayin, I don't have a clear head to render a halachic decision. So therefore, this is not a good halacha. Omar le Rav said to him, "My time, Omar Marhachi. Why are you, Rav Nachman, saying comments about the halachos?" Omar Rav Acha bar Chanina. Behold, Rav Acha, the son of Rabbi Chanina, said the following: "My tichsi. What's meant by the pasuk in Mishlei? V'roye zoynois ya'abed hoin. The company of zoynois will cause a person to lose his wealth." Here the Gemara makes a drash on the word zoynois. It's a contraction of two words. Kol ha'oy meshmua zu noe, v'zu eina noe. That's the word zoynois. Zu noe, and this is not noe. Ma'abed hoyno shel Torah. He destroys, he loses the kavod, the wealth, the kavod of the Torah, and therefore he will also then lose his own learning. He'll forget his own learning. Omar le hadrabi. Rav Nachman said, I didn't know that, and therefore I retract. He'll be more careful not to then make comments that this is noeh, and this halach is not noeh. Omar Rabbi Rav Huna. Once we mentioned the halacha name of Shmuel before, that one who drinks a revis of yain cannot render a halachic decision. The Gemara now brings the following: Omar Rabbi Rav Huna, Shasui al Yispalil. One who drinks shall not pray, shall not daven. V'mispalel tefilasa tefila. But if he did daven b'di'evid, his tefillah is a good daven, a good tefillah. Shikur al yispalel v'mispalel tefilasa to'eva. Whereas a person who drank and he's considered to be a shikr, if he davened, he shouldn't. And if he did b'di'evid, it's a to'eva, an abomination. Ask the Gemara, hechi dami shasui. What's considered to be a shasui, that we said he should not daven, but if he does, it's still a good tefillah. You wouldn't have to repeat the shacharis, the shmona esrei that he davened. Whereas when it comes to then shikr, if he daven his shachari shikr, he would have to then return and daven again once he sobers up, because his tefillah was an abomination. Says the Gemara, Ki hod Rabbi Abba bar Shimni Rabbi Menashe bar Yirmiyahu begdifti havu kam ifteri mahadodi amabro de nahar yufti. They were parting ways from each other at the river bank of the river of Yufti. Amru, they said to each other, Kol chad minon lema milsa de l'shmiya lechaver. Let each one of us say a halachic matter that the other one has never heard before. The Omar Mari bar Rav Huna, because Mari bar Rav Huna said the following: Lo yipoter adam mechaveroi ela mitoich dvar halacha shemitoich kach zoichroi. A person should not part from his fellow man without saying a halacha, because by saying halacha, he'll be remembered by that person. Every time he thinks about that halacha, it'll remind him of the person that he had taken leave from. So therefore, before leaving your fellow man, make a halacha, say a halacha. So let us both say a halacha that the other one that has not yet heard, whereby we'll come to remember each other. Posach chad v'omar. One of them opened up and said the following halacha. Heichi dami shasui ve'heichi dami shikur. He said, what is the chiluk between these two different terms? The status of a shasui and the status of a shikur. Shasui kol sheyachol ledaber b'fnei hamelech. Shikur kol she'eino yachol ledaber b'fnei hamelech. A shasui can still speak to the king. Therefore, when he's going to speak to the king, the melech malchei amlochim, although it's not the greatest of kavod if he drank beforehand, but his tefillah still is going to be a good tefillah. Whereas the shikar, who can't even speak before the king, he comes for the melech, he comes in front of the melech, malchei amlochim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's a zilzul in the kavod, a bizoyon to the melech, and therefore his tefillah is a to'eva, it's an abomination. Posach idoch v'omar. The other one opened up with a different halacha. And he said, Hamachzik benichsei hager, one who is koine, he's zoiche in the chasim of a ger. Now a ger, if he doesn't have any children after he became a ger, he has nobody to be yarish him, because he doesn't have any family from before that can be yarish him, and therefore anybody's machzik, anybody who's zoiche in his property after he dies, it belongs to the person who's zoiche in. But there's a problem, says the Gemara, because people then see that this person, he took all of this wealth from this ger that died, and they'll give him an ayin hara. They'll be jealous of him. So therefore, ask the Gemara, Hamachzik, or the Gemara says the following halacha, Hamachzik ben nichsei hager, ma yaseh v'yiskaimu biyado. What shall he do so that the wealth will remain in his hand, in his possession? Answers the Gemara the following halacha, Yikach bohen sefer Torah. He shall take and buy a Sefer Torah with some of that wealth. In other words, he'll do a mitzvah that the rabbim will then benefit from, and that will then give him then the wherewithal to hold on to his wealth, the wealth that he was zoichet in from the ger rather. Omar Rav Sheshes says, Afilu Baal minichsei ishtoi. On top of Samach Daled Amud Beis, he adds that even when it comes to a man who then gains a lot of wealth from his wife's property, he shall also then do a mitzvah like buy a Sefer Torah in order to then hold on to that wealth. Again, so people then should not be jealous of him and give an ayin hara. Rava Omar, Rava said, Afilu ovad isko v'rovach. Even if a person did a good business deal and he was very successful in that deal, he should also then take some of that money and buy a Sefer Torah, do a mitzvah that the rabbi will then benefit from. Rapapa Amar, afilu matzah mitzvah. Even if he finds a mitzvah that doesn't have simonim, it doesn't have to return to the owner, and he's able to keep for himself, he shall also then perform a mitzvah that the rabbi will benefit from in order to then be able to hold on to that wealth. Omer Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, afilu kasav b'hu tefillin. It doesn't have to be a mitzvah, says Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, like buying a Sefer Torah that the rabbim will then benefit from. It could even be a mitzvah that the person himself will benefit from, like buying a pair of tefillin, that will also then give him the segula to then hold on to that wealth. It'll be miskayim biyodoi. V'omer Rav Chanin, v'yitem Rabbi Chanino, Mikro, what's the verse that supports this hanhaga? That a person who then has the wealth either from being zoich in the nechasim of the ger, or a person who is zoich in the property of his wife, or a person who does a good business deal, or perhaps a person who finds a mitzvah, all of these things, what's the source that a person should go ahead and do a mitzvah to then be able to machzik biyodoi, this property, or miskayim biyodoi? Gemara brings the following. Mikro, it says, Dichsiv, Vayodar Yisrael neder v'goymer. Yisrael, Klal Yisrael, were facing what they thought were to be the Knainim, because they're speaking the Lashon of Knainim, but it was really the Amalekim that were dressed up as Knainim. Sorry, they sounded like Amalekim because they were speaking Amalekim, but they were dressed up as Knainim. So Klal Yisrael didn't know what to do, and they were in a state of peril. So they said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if you will give this enemy in our hands, we will then makdish all of their property to hekdesh. So we have a precedent that when a person is in a situation and he's able to then give at least some of the wealth as a mitzvah in order to then be zoiche into that wealth, that will be a zechus to be miskayim biyadoi.